Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. Viktor Orbán's hold on Hungary appears to be slipping, with some polls showing the newly formed Tisza Party taking the lead. As the country prepares to celebrate its national holiday on March 15th, both party leaders are looking to rally support. Our correspondent, Paweł Trzepkowski, has more.
The 15th of March is a day of national holiday in Hungary, an opportune moment for Hungarians to celebrate, but also an opportune moment for politicians to make a statement. And to discuss this, I'm joined today by Péter Bolyás, a former foreign minister of Hungary. What is the significance of tomorrow's holiday?
Hungary is a rich country. We have 3 national holidays. In fact, the day of tomorrow is not the official holiday, but has a very important emotional content. We are remembering the 1848 revolution, and politicians are going to pronounce important speeches, important messages to the population. We are expecting at least 2 events, one on behalf of the declining government, and another one on behalf of the emerging opposition.
What sort of message can we expect from the declining government?
Well, Mr. Orbán has no new ideas. We could observe it since quite a long time. And at the start of the campaign for the European parliamentary elections, he has launched a message. He told it even in English to the Hungarian public. He said 3 words: no war, no gender, no migration. These are artificial problems because no war is threatening Hungary. Migrants are not coming to this country. They are going to better countries with higher salaries. And this gender issue is an extreme right slogan, again an artificial question. So I am really curious to see whether he has any new ideas. In the last times, he tried to decrease the expenses of the families, to decrease inflation without any big success.
And what sort of message can we expect from the newly emerging power of Tisza Party?
Well, this is a very interesting phenomenon because Tisza Party has been there for slightly more than 1 year now, and they are having a growing support on behalf of the population, people turning away from the government on the one hand and from other opposition parties on the other. Magyar is a very popular person, and he's a good fighter. His main strength is that he is dealing with the everyday problems of the people, with the very bad shape of healthcare, with questions of the education, with emerging growing prices, and many others. And he is going around in the country. He has made several rounds going to the smallest villages, speaking directly to people, and he has a growing attendance, so I'm looking forward with great interest to his speech tomorrow.
Thank you. My guest was Péter Bolyás, a former foreign minister of Hungary. I'm Paweł Trzepkowski, TVP World from Budapest, Hungary.
And staying on topic, after days of negotiations, Hungary has dropped its veto and voted to extend EU sanctions against thousands of Russian individuals. However, sources indicate that intense behind-the-scenes bargaining took place in Brussels to secure Budapest's support. Our EU correspondent, Angela Skujins, reports from the Belgian capital.
Ambassadors from the 27 EU member states voted in support of the extension of EU sanctions targeting Russian and Belarusian individuals. Now, 2,400 people, mostly Russians, are on this list, and they have been hit with asset freezes as well as travel bans. But the rub here is that this sanction requires a 6-month extension with the deadline on Saturday night. But after 3 days of marathon talks, the ambassador for Budapest was finally convinced, what we're hearing from our sources, that they were pushed over the line only when 7 names were removed from that list. Now, 3 of these people are deceased. 1 other person was removed due to a weak legal case. and the other people, questions remain regarding them. But a journalist asked the European Commission today when and if these sanctions would ever be wound up. This is because the Hungarian Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, says that he will not support any measure that puts at risk those wafer-thin ceasefire negotiations between the Kremlin and Kyiv. Let's take a listen to what that European Commission spokesperson had to say regarding that timeline.
When it comes to timing, we will not be able to disclose any of this. And also, again, as said yesterday, will not engage into if scenarios. But we know very well that our sanctions are working. They are biting and crippling Russia's economy. And this is exactly the intended effect, because what we want to achieve with this is to ensure that Ukraine is strong and Russia doesn't have the money and the fuel to put in his war machine.
But this is not the only time Hungary has threatened to torpedo EU sanctions as well as support measures for Ukraine. Roughly a month ago, that representative vowed to derail any sanctions targeting Russian industry. We're talking about oil, gas, luxury goods, as well as broadcasting media. But that ambassador was convinced at the last minute. But the Hungarian Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, most recently was in Brussels, and he voted against a support military initiative for Ukraine. There is another one of those meetings scheduled for late next week, so we'll have to see whether this disunity will continue. Angela Scugins from Brussels for TVP World.
Ukraine launched an overnight drone attack across Russia, hitting multiple targets linked to Moscow's oil and gas industry. Our Ukraine correspondent, Oz Kataji, has more.
While US President Donald Trump maintains that Kyiv has no cards to play in its defensive war against the Russian invasion, Ukraine's security services, the SBU, just conducted another overnight drone strike against targets across Russia. Ukraine continued its campaign targeting Russian oil facilities by targeting an oil refinery in the Krasnodar Krai region. Further, they targeted a missile depot in the Belgorod region near the border with Ukraine, and gas metering stations, gas compressing stations were targeted by the Ukrainian SBU in the Tambov and Saratov oblasts. So, while discussions about a potential ceasefire are ongoing between the United States and Ukraine, Ukraine continues to target sites inside Russia with its domestically produced drones. It's Oz Kataji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
Tensions are rising in Greenland following President Donald Trump's latest remarks about a potential U.S. takeover of the island. Our correspondent, Sonia Gatabishan, has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump openly targets Greenland again. This time, in a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, he said he thinks the annexation of Greenland will happen.
I'm sitting with a man that could be very instrumental. You know, Mark, we need that for international security, not just security, international.
Greenland's outgoing prime minister called for an urgent meeting of the party leaders to show a united front against the threat.
This time, we need to toughen our rejection of Trump. People cannot continue to disrespect us.
None of the major political parties in Greenland is interested in Greenland becoming part of the United States. Even Kuno Fenker from the Nalurak party, who generally welcomed U.S. interest in Greenland, rejected the idea of being annexed.
Our right to external self-determination is non-negotiable from Greenland's side. We will not be annexed by another country again. We will own our country.
NATO Secretary General acknowledged the security importance of Greenland, but highlighted that he will stay away from the discussion on whether Greenland will join the U.S., not to drag NATO into this discussion. From Nuuk, for TVP World, Sonia Gatabishchan.
And with that, we conclude this edition of World News. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.